Hello and welcome to Turning Works, where I've been nominated by Paul Lockwood to answer the 10 Woodturner's questions, and off we go. Number 1. When did you start wood turning and why? Well, I turned my first piece on 1st of November 2015. My dad told me that one of his friends was selling all his woodworking tools, and I said, well, no, it's all right, cheers Dad, I've got enough tools as it is. And he said, well, he's selling a lathe and for 50 quid. So me being me, I sort of said, right, phone him, tell him I have it, and I'll come and pick it up. So I went over on the 1st of November and picked it up. It was a Sealy 300 swing, and the guy, Don, gave me a load of tools with it, sort of little Clark style tools, and you know, faceplate and bits of other bits and pieces, and there we go. And that's how, well, that's why I got started in wood turning, because I like a bargain. How did I get started? Well, normally if I'm doing anything, I would jump straight on YouTube and spend hours and hours researching and seeing exactly how to do it. I've done that with so many things, heating systems, learning to weld, there's fixing computers, absolutely, there's everything. You know, I use YouTube a lot to learn new skills, and I think it's a very useful tool. But as far as actually how did I get started and that sort of thing, I actually, when I bought the lathe, I brought it home, and I made a bench, put it here, and then bolted the lathe to that. I'll put a picture up in a minute. I've always loved wood, and I've always been very practical sort of person, you know, learning things quite quickly and jumping and just having a go, really. I'm not afraid to sort of have a go. And so yeah, so I set up the lathe. I had a couple of little bits of wood, which I've still actually got. I'm going to show you in a second. And I looked at it. I figured out that you had to put, you know, you had to have a spiky thing in two ends, one to drive it and one to sort of spin. And you put wood between them, and then you attack them with chisels. So that's, you know, that's basically how I started. I didn't think it was going to be what I think of it is now, but there we go. So this is my first piece. I broke this off actually because I used it for something else, but this is my first piece, and actually the cuts on here are really good. Now this, I don't think this has been, oh yeah, it has been sanded by the looks of it. But yeah, so that was my first piece, and I tested some lacquer spray over something else to see if it would run, all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, so I tried some beads and coves and that sort of thing. I didn't even know what I was doing. So this is literally not knowing anything about turning, and I just jumped in, had a go, and that's what I sort of come up with on my first go ever. What tools do I use the most? Well, I seem to be doing quite a few bowls at the moment, so bowl gouge is obviously used a lot at the moment. Round nose scraper, again with the bowls. I do love my roughing gouge. I think the roughing gouge is well underestimated. You can do a lot with it, depending on how you use it. So there's not one tool that I use the most, although at the moment I guess it would be the bowl gouge. What finish do I prefer? Well, I generally like to use microcrystalline wax because it gives that hard finish to it. I also like wood wax 22. As a pre-finish, I would always go for Yorkshire grit. But recently I've gone back to Hampshire Sheen original, which is quite stunningly wonderful when you use like 2 or more coats, I find. But yeah, I'm quite easy. I'd use Danish oil as well for bits and pieces, You know, things that are going to be used and handled quite a lot, I would prefer to use Danish oil. For everything else, I would use sort of Hampshire sheen or microcrystalline wax or wood wax 22. What would I like to achieve this year? Well, I haven't really got any aims. It's just to carry on sort of learning and getting to know more people in the wood turning community. But yeah, just learning new skills, and I'm happy with that. I've got no major aspirations. Become a world-class wood turner. There we go. Yeah, I'll do that in the next sort of 9 months or so. That'd be fantastic. Rich and famous. Yay! But no, I've got no mad aspirations for this year. Just to keep improving. At the rate I'm improving, I'm quite happy with it at the moment. What part of wood turning do I enjoy the most? Well, everything to do with it. The planning, the getting the wood ready, the cutting, the sanding, the finishing, the showing to people. It's just every single aspect is great. I do like sanding though, because I believe that you can make a fantastic creation, but if you don't finish it well, then you might as well just not bother really. It's all to do, you know, it's all in the finish really. You can make a real pig's ear or something, sand it very well, put a nice finish on it, and it still looks good because you've got the overall, you've put the effort in. So that's my opinion, obviously. But yeah, I love all of it really. Wet turning is amazing fun. You see these long ribbons sort of flying off over your shoulder and making a mess in a thing. But I suppose making a mess actually is one of my favourite things as well. Tidying up is not one of my favourite things. I hate tidying up. It's a right pain. And I wish I didn't have to do it. I wish I had a magical hole in the floor where all the shavings could go and I didn't have to clean up at all. What is the favourite piece you have turned? Well, I'm actually quite pleased with most stuff I've done actually, for different reasons, because the stage I was at that time, that was the best that I could create, so therefore it's hopefully I'm on like a rolling thing where every piece I make will be better than the last one. That's the sort of aim. That's the sort of aim that I sort of go for. But I guess my Trailblazer bowl was very well received. That's fantastic. I just put a picture up of it on Facebook, and literally within 2 hours I had a message asking if I was going to sell it, which I did. The Orbit bowl is one video that's not been really watched so much, but actually that's probably one of my most technical pieces. Now, there was some sort of discussion on a couple of forums where they said that the rings weren't perfectly round. There was a bit of smudging on inside the ring where the brush sort of feathered. But those people were missing the point of that piece. The whole point of that piece was to excuse me, was be an offset bowl, number one. Number two, it was meant to show sort of two planets or a moon going around a planet and sort of cosmic rays coming out and that sort of thing. But it was meant to be organic. The actual offset bowl, if you look at the pictures, if you can find a picture of it somewhere, the actual offset bowl, the way I turned it was intentional, because when you look inside, the grain actually looks like the rings of the planet. It looks like it's going around a planet, and the bottom bit does as well. So it was actually intentional. Everything on that bowl was intentionally done. The reason why the lines weren't stark and really clean and that sort of thing was because I didn't want them that way. It was meant to be organic. It was meant to be slightly fluffy, slightly blurry around the edges, because they're planets, you know. And I'm sure planets aren't, you know, geometrically absolutely perfect with a perfect outline of it's meant to be organic. That's the whole point. But saying that, one piece I did turn, which I haven't really made a big deal out of really, is I think I did mention it, is this Caped Gentleman. Now this is made out of ash. It's been sanded to 600, and it's an off-center multi-axis thing. Basically, this has got 5. You see that? It was 5 different points here that this was actually turned on. I did cock it up actually. It was meant to be different than this, but this is how this particular one turned out. But it's just meant to be, if you can see that, a guy in a top hat. There's his head. This is meant to be the collar. This bit here is meant to be the collar. There's his top hat. There's his head with the collar going up, you know, right up there like the old style gentleman did, and then he's got a long flowing cape. It goes like that, you see. He's called the Cape Gentleman, but that's made out of ash, and the way that has aged is absolutely beautiful. It reminds me of something that my parents used to have, or still have. It was an old carving of a giraffe, and it just sat on the side, and you didn't really pick it up and touch it, but it was there, and if you did pick it up, it just felt lovely. And that's what this is all about. It's all about the visual and the texture, and that is just one of my favourite pieces, because it's just, I don't know really, but it's cool, and it feels nice, and it looks nice, and it's just a lovely piece, and not a lot of people notice it, and I think that's probably why I like it. So that's that really. But yeah, I mean, every piece that the latest piece that I've done is generally my favourite piece, but the Trailblazer bowl was quite spectacular in my opinion for me to do, so I was super pleased about that. To colour or not to colour? Yeah, go for it if you want to. If you don't, then don't. I think that there's a time and place for everything, and sometimes pieces need colour to get the effect that you want for that particular piece. If you just got a bowl blank and you've cut a nice shaped bowl, and you just chuck on colour for the sheer hell of it, and it doesn't blend, or it doesn't mix, or it doesn't, then I don't see the point in just colouring for colouring's sake. But if a piece or a grain deserves a bit of colour, deserves a bit of highlighting or whatever, and you can still see the grain through it, unlike the Trailblazer bowl, but that was a different thing altogether. But yeah, if you can see the grain, and the grain shows through the colour, then I think that that's okay. I like colouring when it needs it, so probably not a great answer, but I think if a piece needs it, then it needs it. If it doesn't, then leave it alone. But you know, to each their own. I'm quite happy to use colour. I've got no problems with it. I don't see what the problem is. I mean, if we're talking segmenting, then yeah, I'm probably along the same lines as Mike Walt, but we're not. We're talking colour, and segmenting is a whole different thing. Hey, Mike. So yeah, each their own. Why did I start a YouTube channel? Well, you've probably heard this answer X amount of times already, but it's to give something back. That was my primary thing. And also my first few videos which I made, I was meant to be doing like a beginner series, so I was a total beginner, and I wanted to hand over tips that if someone had literally just got their lathe, put it on, you know, had just unboxed it, put it there, now what I'll do, they could watch my videos and they could sort of see quite a detailed sort of instruction of how to mark up the pieces, how to put it in, and how to hold your basic, you know, basic tool use and that sort of thing. I mean, I know I'm not a qualified teacher or anything, but that was just things that I found out from watching hours of YouTube that I wanted to, you know, the quick start things. I mean, you get them with computers and that sort of thing, where you get a quick start sort of like leaflet. This was like, these videos were meant to represent like a quick start turning video type of thing. So that's what that was for. But mainly because I've used YouTube for so many things, as I said, like welding and other stuff, that saved me so much money and time over the years, that I did want to give something back, and especially when I'd learnt about the woodturning community and how great it is. You know, I really wanted to give something back then, because these guys have given us their time and effort, and you know, it was, I just want to get something back, really. Pretty boring, eh? What other hobbies do I have? None. Nice quick answer for you. I used to do a lot of stuff. I used to play in bands when I was younger. I used to play all over the place. I went on tour with a school band, but I used to play up in London quite a bit. I used to play drums, so yeah, I used to play up in London quite a bit and around the place, doing gigs, and a lot in Brighton. Played a lot in Brighton. I used to do martial arts, but I had to stop that because of I got osteoarthritis in my feet, so that means I can't go around kicking people anymore, and it's really painful. So so yeah, so I don't go around kicking people anymore, so that's probably a good thing. Of course, I'm not as fit as I used to be, but there we go. I used to ride motorbikes and ride round with people. Some of them were quite unsavoury, and yeah, so I had an interesting sort of period in my 20s of riding around with sort of I never joined one. But I used to ride around with bike clubs and go to rallies and that sort of stuff, and used to you know, terrorise neighbours with loud bikes and that sort of stuff. It's all well in the past now, but I have still got my bike. It's a Honda CB 750, double overhead cam, 16 valves, goes like off shovel, and well, it used to, but I've been waiting to rebuild it, been waiting to save up the funds to do that, and obviously the lathe is taking quite a lot of those funds away from that. So but one day I'll be back on the road, but it's a cool bike. I'll show you a picture here. So that's me. That was me in my 20s, probably about 23, I think. But I had a lot of fun in the biking community. That was another community that was fantastic. But there we go, youth and all that lot, eh? Right, now on to the next nomination. Now I want to nominate someone who has a clear and obvious passion for wood turning and the whole community, and that's Lydia. Hope I've pronounced that right. She's someone that is she likes taking part in everything and sorting things out. In actual fact, she's helping Martin and Steve and everyone else out with the UKIS this year. So that's really, you know, well done, Lydia. You know, it's nice that there's so many people willing to help out, and that, again, that's what a great community this is. So over to you, Lydia. You got your 10 questions, and I can't wait to see your video. Good luck. Now, thank you to everyone who's watched this, and thank you also to my subscribers, old and new. I'm coming up for 600 now, so it's amazing. Thank you very much. I couldn't be more pleased. So I've got a new project coming out very soon, which I will put up as soon as I've done it. It's probably next weekend, but until then, take care. So see you later, guys. Take care.